Oh, down. Oh, so of course. It's supposed to look like a cross. So.
It does when you look at it like this. It does kind of look like a cross. The early fathers picked up on this and said they were all marked with the cross, because it's only by the cross that we are marked. And what happens when we are confirmed? We get sealed with oil in what form?
Chrism.
A cross. The priest or the bishop puts a cross on your forehead in oil, and you are marked. Is it so much a physical mark? It's a spiritual mark. Now, confirmation is one of 3 sacraments that do what to your soul? Puts an indelible mark on the soul. What are the other sacraments that do that? Baptism and holy orders. When a man is marked with holy orders, he is forever a priest. Even if he falls into scandal, even if he falls into ill repute, even if he's taken out of the ministry or laicized, as it's called, in his soul, he's always a priest. Always. Even if he's stripped, if you will, of his so-called clerical abilities for whatever reason, scandal or whatever. Doesn't matter. His soul is marked. You cannot erase that mark. Think of it this way. People who are baptized and then just fall away from the faith and they join New Age cults or whatever, and they don't believe in anything anymore. Are their souls changed? No. If they've been legitimately baptized, that baptismal mark follows them for all of their life. You cannot erase it. Their soul may be condemned, but that mark on their soul stays. You with me?
Yep.
What is this marking? According to the Catechism, do you remember what this seal is? Or I should say, who is? It's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the one that marks and dwells within the soul in confirmation. And it is his job, if you will, his duty, to make that soul holy. Hence the name, Holy Spirit. And what is his job to do? Conform us into Christ's image. That's the whole goal. We are to turn into Jesus. Is that shocking to anyone?
Nope.
Have we learned this already in the book of Revelation? Oh, yes. Where?
What?
The 7 blessings given to the churches. Remember? All the rewards that are given. The manna, the sitting at the right hand, what else? Being a pillar in the temple, the new name, all of that. Eating of the tree of life. All of those, remember that?
Yes.
What did they all boil down to? Becoming Jesus himself, because Jesus is all of that. So you see, in the book of Revelation, we're given this understanding of all that salvation history was driving us to. Bless you. Okay? Now, chapter 7, verses 1 through 8 is the Jews being marked. What is similar yet different in the rest of the chapter, verses 9 through 17? What's same and yet different? Let's start with what's same. What is happening in verses 9 through 17 of chapter 7?
The great multitude.
The great multitude. So that's what The same, because how many of the Jews are being saved and sealed? A multitude. Okay, in the symbolic number of 144,000. So the great number of Jews and a great number of who? Non-Jews. That's what's different. These are non-Jews. How do you know that? They're from every nation. What else? Tribe, tongue, peoples. Right. The palm branches are symbolic of their martyrdom or their purity. It can be either a symbol. But in chapter 7, the whole of chapter 7 is basically the multitude of those who have been saved both from the old covenant, the Jews, and those of the new covenant, of the non-Jews. But they're all around the same throne of God. This is another common theme that we've already seen repeated. What do you mean? Well, how many elders are around the throne of God? 24. One of the interpretations of that is that it's 12 and 12. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 apostles. And why would I think that? Because it's the Old Testament and the New Testament combined. What else would give me that idea? Well, chapters 4 and 5. What is chapter 4 about? Worship. Worship of God as the creator of the cosmos. The old covenant, right? What is chapter 5? The worship of the Lamb, the liturgy of redemption, which represents what? The new covenant, because it centers around Jesus as our Redeemer. So in chapter 7, we get a repeat performance. We see 144,000 Jews being sealed and saved, and a great multitude of non-Jews sealed and saved around the throne of God. You see that? And you see how this is a commonality? Do you think it's going to stop? No, it's going to keep repeating itself. And the reason why I'm telling you this is so that when you see this going on, you get, I get it. This is the old covenant and the new covenant combined. This is the mystery of the church. And that is the first interlude. Chapter 7 is also the first interlude before the seventh seal is opened. Now, before I go any further, on your outline for chapters 6 and 7, this was brought up last week and I almost forgot it, but I'm not going to. One last thing. In Part C, subsection A, subsection I, subsection 5, we talked about Cain being marked by God, the high priest, the sealing of God's faithful, the sacraments of initiation, and number 5 says, those who follow the beast will be marked. I think I want to talk a little bit about the sealing of the 144,000 in contrast to the beast. Because this is one of those things, the sensational things of the book of Revelation. The mark of the beast. Ooh. Social security cards. That's the mark of the beast. RFID chips. Ooh, that's the mark of the beast. We're all doomed. We're all going to die. I don't think so. I don't think. Maybe it will. But I think that that's, again, sensationalism primarily hyped through evangelical Protestantism. They're trying to look for signs in the newspaper to correlate to biblical symbols. And the mark of the beast is one of those. And I've heard sermons from, all over the place saying, like I said, your social security number. When you could buy gas or food with your credit card, people are saying, oh, that's the mark of the beast. It's the mark of the cashless society. We're all going to hell. And it's like, I think it may evolve into that. I don't want to discount anything, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think we're going over a cliff yet. Just relax. Just relax. Well, what is the mark of the beast? Well, let's turn to Revelation 13. Because I think it's interesting that the 144,000 are sealed in chapter 7, and then we hear about the mark of the beast in chapter 13. There's a compare and contrast here that we need to look at. Bless you. And this is also something common in the book of Revelation. Compare and contrast, compare and contrast. And what you're comparing and contrasting is those who follow God and keep his covenant and those that don't. That's the main comparison and contrast here, especially as we go through chapters 6 through 9, the judgments that fall on the earth. Okay? The contrast is between those that follow God and keep his covenant and those that don't. So chapter 13, verses 15 through 18. Well, let's go to verse 16. And it also causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead. Now that's significant. Because where was the high priest's turban? Forehead. When God was marking the people of Ezekiel, it was presumed on the forehead. When we are marked or sealed with the Holy Spirit in confirmation, forehead. It's interesting that the mimic, the anti-mark, if you will, is done in the same place. You want to know why? Because the devil hasn't had an original thought in his life.
He just copycats.
He copies everything that's holy and perverts it into unholy. Evil has never had an original thought in its life. It always takes what's good and twists it. In fact, sin can be defined as love
Twisted.
too little, too much, or at the wrong thing. Too little, too much, or towards the wrong thing. That's sin. You think about it. Think about it. Whenever you sin, what are you doing? I want my needs met. I want what I want. Well, you love yourself, you take care of it, but it's the wrong thing. Whom should you love first? God. Okay. You see that? If you think about every single sin, it's either too much love, too little love, or towards the wrong thing. So, in other words, it's taking something good, love, and perverting it in some way. It's never an original thought. St. Augustine defined evil as the privation of good. The privation of good. What does that mean? That means that there's a good, but you're pulling something out of it. You're lessening it, and as a result, that's evil. Like air is good. We need air to breathe. You take it out, and we suffocate. Okay? You put too much air pressure in here, and we will burst. See that? Too much, too little. You know? Water is a good, but you throw me into a pool and I can't swim, I'll drown. If you put me in a desert, I'll dehydrate. You see that? Too little, too much. Get it? Privation. So, this marking, it's God's idea. So the devil has his own little perverted way of doing it as well. That's part A to the mark of the beast. Hold that thought. Let's get to what this means. So he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, to receive a mark on their right hand or forehead, so that no one may buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast or the number of his name. Did you catch that? Now this calls for wisdom. Let him who has understanding reckon the number of the beast. It is a human number. It is the number 666. We've already spoken about what 666 stands for, right? What does the number 6 symbolically mean? Why? Because they were made on the 6th day of creation. Who else was made on the 6th day of creation? Man. So notice it's the human number. I don't quite like that translation. If you have an older translation or another translation, it may say, it is the number of a man. I think that's a more accurate translation. This is how the early fathers understood this number. They understood it as a literal name, being able to be understood in terms of, you see, in Latin, all the letters of the alphabet stand for numbers. I'm like, well, that's odd. And I go, no, you're very familiar with this. We just don't see it a lot. What is that? 23? I don't see 23. I see 2 X's and 3 I's. But why did you say 23? Roman numerals have numeric value. That's why. Same thing is true for Greek and Hebrew. Each of the letters have a numeric value. And so one of the things like Irenaeus did in trying to discern what the name of the beast is he applied it to different names. And he said, this could work and this could work. And the long and short of it is he said, this could go on forever.